WGNS.
This message brought to you by the Central Tennessee Regional Solid Waste Planning Board. Visit recyclerightTN.com for tips, ideas, and locations on where to recycle near you.
Don't be trashy, recycle classy, recycle right, Tennessee.
Recycling isn't just about tossing materials in a bin, it's about knowing which materials are accepted. Go to recyclerightTN.com.
Recycle right, Tennessee.
Now an update from the wgnsradio.com News Center.
Providence Christian Academy in Murfreesboro is beginning the search for a new head football coach, as longtime leader LeBron Ferguson has announced his decision to step down at the end of the current academic calendar. Ferguson, who's coached for more than 3 decades, helped launch the football program from the ground up in 2020 and guided it into postseason contention, including a semifinal appearance this past season. His departure closes a chapter that also included earlier coaching years in Murfreesboro at Oakland, spanning more than a decade. School officials say a committee will soon be formed to identify his successor and continue building on the foundation that he established. As one chapter ends on the field, Rutherford County is also reflecting on the loss of a familiar and trusted voice behind the scenes in public safety. The Rutherford County Sheriff's Office is mourning former dispatcher Aaron Cope, a 26-year veteran who passed away over the weekend. Cope joined the Sheriff's Office in 2000, and he became known as a steady presence during emergencies, often guiding deputies with an encyclopedic knowledge of local roads long before GPS became the standard. Colleagues remember Cope as a calming force in high-pressure moments, someone who blended professionalism with quiet compassion and honor. Deputies and supervisors alike credit him with anticipating needs, sending help before it was requested, and offering reassurance when it mattered most. The community is invited to honor Cope's life and service this Friday, February the 13th, with visitation from 2 until 4 at Woodfin Memorial Chapel, followed immediately by a memorial service. That's all for now. I'm Dalton Barrett, and I'll talk to you later.
The Good Neighbor Network, on air and online at wgnsradio.com. Rutherford County's most trusted source for local news. We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Welcome in. It's the Wednesday Roundtable on WGNS. Chip Walters with you, and from Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates, and the Blue Raider Network. And glad to have you along with us on this Wednesday. And it has been, we have gone from ice to 70, almost 80 degrees yesterday to a little chilly this morning. So, it's Middle Tennessee, so if you don't like the weather, just wait about 15 minutes and it'll all get turned around. Again, glad to have you with us this morning. And, it's always fun to have folks you've known for a long time and really think a lot of and celebrate people who have done good things. And Meagan Flippin is one of those that, got the call about having Meagan on, and I thought, man, I'm trying to think how long I have known Meagan since she was in high school, which was only like 5 years ago, right?
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3, something like that. But Meagan has paved her way in the nonprofit world, working with United Way here in Rutherford and Cannon counties, and now she is the president and CEO for the Center for Nonprofit Excellence of Middle Tennessee, and which is a very noble venture, and we'll talk about that and talk about nonprofits in general and what a critical time it is for them. But Meagan, how you doing?
I'm good.
Yep.
I'm good.
So, yeah. And life treating you well?
It is as best as I can have it right now. I think, it's already felt like 2026 has been a long year with all of the weather and everything that's been going on. But all that being said, everything's good.
What's the meme that's been out there? Boy, January, that was a long year.
It did feel like it.
It absolutely did. Well, you, a lot of folks know your husband, Mike Polly, he is now a new assistant football coach at the University of Florida.
Yes.
And so you all have already been mastering the commuter marriage over the last couple of years when he was at Georgia Tech. So now you're all having to figure out the new flights and all that kind of stuff. How's Mike doing?
He's great. Yeah, he's really enjoying his new opportunity in the University of Florida, and he's doing really well.
Good deal. Well, I asked you about your folks, and your mom and dad are doing well, and they've been pillars. Your dad was played football at Middle back in the day. He was like an all-conference punter, I think, back at one point, if my memory serves me right.
That's what I hear.
That's what you. Neither one of us were there to see it.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and about the Center for Nonprofit Excellence.
Yeah. So the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, I often say for people who may not be familiar with our organization, is somewhat like a chamber of commerce for nonprofit organizations. So we are celebrating our 40th year here in Middle Tennessee this year. We were originally started under the United Way umbrella in 1986 with a initial investment from the HCA Foundation to provide a resource for nonprofits for leadership development, trainings, tools, templates that nonprofits can use to be more effective in their mission delivery.
Yeah. And so basically you have nonprofits throughout the mid-state area that are members of your organization. And like you said, a good example, like you mentioned, would be kind of a chamber of commerce type thing. So does that include, service clubs or anything like that? Or does it strictly just straight out nonprofits?
Yes, so it's essentially any 501c organization in the Middle Tennessee area. So we have about 600 members.
Oh, wow.
About 2/3 of those members are in Davidson County, though many of those also serve counties outside of Davidson. And then about 1/3 of those members are housed in counties surrounding Davidson County. So about 600 members total.
Okay. It includes everything from food banks to shelters to health clinics. You name it, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. We cover, the full gamut of nonprofit types, which is something that has been really, interesting and rewarding, and something that I really also loved about the time that I was at United Way is that, we're really focused on kind of the broader scope of the nonprofit community. And so we have organizations, food, housing, clothing, but also education and literacy and job training and mental health and physical health, environment, arts, you name it. Essentially any 501c is an organization that the CNE may represent with our membership.
Gotcha. And we've just gone through, there's probably the strains on those type organizations right now are as tough as they could be or have been at any point that in recent history, not only due to, whether it's economic strains or, we've just gone through a natural disaster in this area. So tell me what you're hearing from those your member organizations and the strains that are being put on them during this time.
Yeah, so the past 12 months, well, I'll even really back up to really the past 6 years with the start of the pandemic have been especially challenging for nonprofit organizations. And, as long as we can remember, nonprofits often are, operating on very lean resources, typically are very stretched in terms of, capacity. But one thing I have learned in my nearly 20 years in the nonprofit space is that nonprofits are resourceful and they're resilient, and they will find a way to serve the people that they work with.
And they can stretch a dollar.
Yep, that is 100% right. And so this, past year especially, I think it was last January, we had a lot of our organizations become notified that any kind of government funding that they may have been receiving to provide services was going to be decreased or maybe even come to an end altogether. And it was a very quick scenario where those organizations really had to respond quickly and really think on their feet. And when I say resilient, I saw firsthand how some of the nonprofits in Middle Tennessee really thought outside of the box just to ensure that they could continue service delivery to their constituents. So we went through a really challenging 2025 just based on the financial constraints, because it was really a domino effect from government that then, many local funders, we're trying to figure out how to respond to the gap in government dollars. So then that, by default or as a byproduct, created some gaps other places. So it was really like this domino effect in funding. And then we start out, 2026 at the top of the year with this ice storm that a lot of our organizations are helping to respond to. So it just felt like for the last 6 years that nonprofits have faced challenge again, but yet they have seemed to come out and really show, their backbone and how they can continue to deliver services. Yeah,
and you talk. It's like they've not been able to catch up and take a breath, almost at any time through that. So
that's exactly right. Yeah. And I don't feel like there's really been a normal year in the last 6 years. So I'm looking forward to the day when we have an uneventful year or quarter.
Well, and during 2025, there were some pretty high profile things that happened, like on a national level, whether it was, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which affected public television, and public radio, things like that, those got a lot of attention. But when you get down, to the local levels, there were others that faced adversity from those kind of cuts as well.
Yeah, I think everybody in some form or fashion, and even C&E itself, was not immune to facing some kind of impact from the financial constraints that played out throughout 2025. I think everybody was touched in some way. And
so now the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, C&E, which is much easier to say.
Yeah.
Now, when it got started, I mean, and it itself is a 501c organization, I'm assuming as well. So what is the history of this? Because you said it's been going on for what, 40 years or so?
Our 40th birthday this year.
Who was the brains behind starting it?
So initially, it was the brainchild coming from the United Way and the HCA Foundation at that time. And there was a group of leaders, business and community leaders in Middle Tennessee that just saw an opportunity to provide this resource for the nonprofit community. And initially started out as the Management Development Institute. And it was really about leadership development. And over time, the organization, as many should and do, evolved to include other services like consulting for nonprofits, different resources. I remember reading back and seeing, I think it was in the 1990s, they had produced a booklet of grant opportunities. As pre-internet days. So they were mailing out these booklets of here are all the grant opportunities that your organization could be eligible for. We now have that electronically that we offer our members. But there was, this constant focus on how do we equip and empower nonprofits to excel, which is what our mission statement is. And so anything that falls into that mission statement that allows nonprofits to be more effective and or efficient in delivering their services, that's where we can come in and play a role. Gotcha.
And how did you, in particular, when you started to, you go to college and you get out there and, okay, I'm ready to whip the world now and do whatever it is. Did you consciously think about the nonprofit world, or did life just kind of take you in that direction?
I think where my interest in the nonprofit space really formed was probably in my college and immediately after college days. I was involved with different things on MTSU's campus related to different nonprofits. And then from there, I went on and as I was working on my graduate degree, I did a graduate assistantship in the Office of Leadership and Service at MTSU.
Okay.
And again, we worked with a lot of nonprofit partners and a lot of service initiatives. And so I think that's where my love for the mission-driven work really was affirmed. So after college, I went out and I worked briefly at the Musicians Hall of Fame in Nashville as they were getting up and started, which is also a nonprofit, a little bit different than what people typically think of when they think of a nonprofit. But museums
because that's a place where you go and you buy tickets to go in and look at things. But that was started by a gentleman from right here in Murfreesboro as well.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to be there for some time and help them with getting that started, and that was really exciting. And then from there I went on to United Way, where I spent 14 years, and I really loved working in that space and having kind of the broader view, working with so many different organizations versus focusing on one particular mission or issue area. And so after about 14 years, this opportunity with C&E came along, and, I really saw it as kind of the next step in that journey in serving the nonprofit sector in Middle Tennessee. So, we went from focused on Rutherford and Cannon and a few surrounding counties at that time at United Way to now we are all across Middle Tennessee, and it's really any type of nonprofit organization. So it was kind of just that logical continuation of service in this community. Yeah,
well, and I think you were, if I remember right, you were in a sorority. I was in a fraternity when I was on campus, and I think one thing that probably in this town, because as we know, Murfreesboro and Rutherford County is a very giving community, but I think that sometimes the university does not get credit in instilling that want to give back into its students that it does, and in particular the philanthropic endeavors of fraternities, sororities, other groups on campus, the Student Government Association. When you go and look at the hours that they put in, and even even in our athletic teams, they get out there and they do things in the community to help nonprofits as well, and it's something that shouldn't be forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, the formative years, so to speak, would probably be in that college time frame. And if an institution has done their job well, they have instilled that interest in giving back and being a servant leader. Yeah,
exactly. Now, when you got to United Way for the first time, I'm curious when you started looking at the challenges that were ahead. What was it? Was there anything that surprised you about the scope of what United Way in Rutherford and Cannon counties was doing at the time?
Well, that was right in the midst of the Great Recession. So I think I was a little surprised that, okay, this is, a really difficult climate for fundraising at this point in time. Maybe not surprised, but
you had housing issues, you had all kinds of stuff going on.
Just recognizing that that's what we were looking at. I think by and large, just working in the nonprofit space, it's so much more complex than most people realize. Individuals that are facing challenges in their life, it's oftentimes not one particular thing. It's not just housing or just mental health or just food insecurity. It's often a multitude of challenges that they're facing, and it's a lot more complicated than I think the average person truly realizes until you get in that space and have worked directly with clients and understand, that it's not a matter of just pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. This is, people who are just in a cycle that they can't seem to get 1 foot ahead. And with that, it's really difficult for them to move forward. And when I was at United Way, we really were putting an emphasis on outcomes versus outputs, not just how many people walk through your doors or how many people do you serve, but what was their change after you served them? Was there something in their life that improved, or did they move along in the spectrum because they were a recipient of services from that organization? Gotcha.
All right, Meagan Flippin, who is the CEO for the Center of Nonprofit Excellence, in Middle Tennessee, is our guest today. We're talking about the nonprofit world and how it fits into the landscape here in the Mid-State. You're listening to the Roundtable on WGNS.
Whether it's a cough, a fever, or something you can't quite name, MMC Now makes care easy. Walk right in, get seen quickly, and your visit connects directly to your MMC doctor. Care you trust, with providers you know, with digital check-in and multiple locations around town. MMC Now is here when you need us.
Murfreesboro Medical Clinic.
What's the location of your emergency? I think my kid OD'd.
Hi, I'm Craig Harris, I'm County Commissioner of Rutherford County. One of the reasons I ran for office is because I wanted to bring awareness to the opioid epidemic that's impacting our county. To stop providing this epidemic with people as we educate them. We have a lot to do, and we have to come together as a community because this problem's not going away.
Lace up your best kicks for a night of impact benefiting First Shot. Join us for the annual Sneaker Ball presented by Venture Express. Spend Sunday, April 26th with NFL Hall of Famer and Super Bowl MVP Marcus Allen. The event kicks off at 6 with a VIP meet and greet at 5. Reserve your table today. Call Coach Andy Herzer at 615-631-5312. We'll see you at the Sneaker Ball benefiting First Shot on April 26th.
When the weather turns bad, minutes, even seconds matter.
This is an early heads up for southern Rutherford County.
Rutherford Weather brings you live radar and expert meteorologist insight, giving you the early heads up when storms threaten.
A lot of areas are going to see some impacts from this storm.
From analysis to live camera views, we keep you informed before, during, and after the storm.
I think the vast majority of the hail with this now is going to be quarter to perhaps golf ball size.
Rutherford Weather. Stay ahead of the storm.
At Maples Realty and Auction, we handle traditional sales, auctions, and property management. And we have a development called The Maples with local builders and amenities. I'm Betsy Maples, and this is our team. It's our people. That's the difference. Call us today and let us help you get your property sold.
I refer a lot of clients to Maples Realty when we have real estate issues that are coming up. Working with Maples has been easy for me, easy for my clients.
Put our 57 years of success to work for you. Sold!
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Good Neighbor Events is brought to you by America Pest Control, Old National Bank, and the law offices of John Day.
This is a paid legal ad.
At the law offices of John Day, we take only real cases that make a real difference.
Dear John, I want you to know that I appreciate everything you have done so much. I know you went over and beyond, and that's why I just think the world of you. Thank you. Robert K.
My pleasure, Robert. If you're ever injured, know that we are here for you too. Call the law offices of John Day for a free consultation. And remember, there's no fee unless we win your case. Seriously injured? Call me, John Day.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. Please give the gift of life. Phone the Red Cross at 800-RED-CROSS and make an appointment to give blood at a time that fits your schedule. Oh, the Smyrna Lions Club's Sweetheart Dance is Saturday night. That's Valentine's Day, 6:30 Saturday night at the Smyrna Event Center. For more information, get with the Smyrna Event Center. That's this Saturday night. And for your well-being, don't forget, that's Valentine's. You've heard us talking about how yoga improves your flexibility and balance. It improves posture, supports good joint health, and enhances your cardiovascular health. Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department offers yoga classes at Sportscom, the Patterson Community Center, and the St. Clair Senior Center. Phone Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation for information about their yoga classes. Learn more about the history of our community. Head over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse, Saturday anytime between 9 in the morning and noon. Just drop by. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
We'll see gradually clearing conditions for this afternoon with high temperatures into the mid-50s. For tonight, clear and calm, dropping to 29. I'm meteorologist Michael Carroll from the WGNS Rutherford Weather Center. Right now, it's 48.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. Want to take charge of your energy bill? Download the free MyMTE app to track your usage, pay bills, and report outages right from your phone. Download in the App Store today.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into the Wednesday Roundtable. Chip Walters with you from Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates, and the Blue Raider Network. Meagan Flippin is with us today. She is the CEO and president of the Center for Nonprofit Excellence in Middle Tennessee. And you wrote an op-ed back in December, I think, to kind of put the word out. What was it, and kind of talk a little bit about what was in the op-ed that you wrote and what was the impetus behind saying, I need to get this out there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, 2025 was so challenging for so many organizations from a financial and fundraising perspective, and we just saw an opportunity to help promote giving at the end of the year, in particular to organizations that people are passionate about, just to help to drive contributions a little bit more for year-end giving, because we saw firsthand just how many organizations that we work with were impacted in a variety of ways through this whole financial and fundraising crisis in 2025.
Yeah, and so it went out there. What sort of feedback did you receive from what you put out there?
Yeah. Well, I can just tell you from personal experience, our experience at C&E is that we did have more year-end contributions than we've had in the last few years. And so those contributions go back to helping us support the member organizations that we serve. So from a personal standpoint, we could see that there was an uptick this past year in that year-end giving.
Yep. C&E is I guess could be described as a seasoned advocate for nonprofits of every size in Middle Tennessee. Give us an example of what would be on the big end and something that would be I guess a small nonprofit organization and how they can all benefit.
Yeah, and the advocating can look different for different organizations, based on their issue area, their size, whatever that may be. C&E has had some roles in the past where we have gone to either government or large corporations and have been able to negotiate special pricing for nonprofit organizations for their services, or we've been able to influence maybe legislation or advocate on behalf of nonprofits on certain legislation that impacts those organizations. So that would be at the macro scope. At the other end of the spectrum, I think every day we're doing some form of advocacy that could be to the philanthropic community, just like this op-ed. It could be, helping nonprofits really, understand how to better deliver their missions. And so we are coaching and training and consulting with them on how to do that better, so that then they have a better story that they can tell to their funding community to help generate those donations to their mission.
Yeah. So you all have a physical place where where you're bringing folks in, correct?
Yeah, we do. We do have an office based in Nashville, and so that is where our staff operates out of. But we also have conference room and meeting space and classroom, and we actually have a co-working model there too for a lot of nonprofits. So we have some member organizations that are part of that model, and so they come in and they have some designated workspace that they can use. They may not have a brick and mortar of their own. So we've got people in and out of our office in the nonprofit, philanthropic, community leadership space, just about every day.
So now tell me about your staff and kind of what their roles are.
Yeah, so we have a very lean team. There's 4 of us full-time total. So myself, an operations staff person, a programming staff person, and a marketing staff person. So the 4 of us are responsible for everything related to C&E and delivering on our mission and vision.
Yeah, and so you talk about having a classroom, and so what would be some typical teaching opportunities that you have throughout the year for different nonprofits and that can come in, and where those the leaders of those different groups of any size could come in and benefit from?
Yeah. So just yesterday, we had a volunteer management certificate kicking off and a revenue development certificate kicking off. And our certificate and cohort programs are really popular because I think not only are people getting the training for the skills in that particular topic area, but they're developing a network by going through this series with the same group of people and learning from their peers as part of that. Tomorrow we have an online session specific to advocacy and advocating for your organization. And so we try to balance out the certificates and cohort models, which are typically, 2 to 3 months at a time, where people are coming, weekly or every other week to our space and getting this training on a particular topic, with the, 90-minute virtual sessions for people who just maybe really pressed for time, or, it's difficult for them to get to our space, so they can come and participate online. And then we often have half-day or full-day sessions, too, that will center around board development, fundraising. We have an HR certificate kicking off soon that is pretty full right now. Budgeting, finance, it can be program delivery, just anything that probably a typical business deals with, that translates to the nonprofit space too. So we're providing this training at a very reasonable price, a very nominal fee to those organizations.
Yeah, you hit one that kind of got my ear there, board development, because there's so many people that you and I know in this town that are on boards for different nonprofits throughout the community, and that a lot of times people may even hesitate on being on a board because they don't necessarily know
what that means.
What are my responsibilities and what am I opening myself up to? So what the type of training that you all give, and it's also, okay, how much time am I going to have to put into this? Yeah. So what are the things that you can, for people who are board members currently, or people who are thinking about that, and being able to develop the skills and also the confidence to be on a board of a local nonprofit, kind of how would you address that, and how would you make recommendations?
The first thing that I always tell people is they're considering joining a board or have interest in becoming involved in board service is really understand what you're committing to and what the organization, how it operates, its financial health and position. A lot of people don't realize that they have legal responsibility as a board member. And, there's the 3 areas: the fiduciary responsibility, the duty of care, the duty of loyalty. And a lot of people don't really understand that. They think, hey, I like this fundraiser that they put on, and I want to play a role in that fundraiser, and I'm going to come. And they don't understand that they are making financial and legal decisions on behalf of the organization, and the weight that comes with that. And there's 3 types of boards. You have governing, you have advisory, and you have a working board, just generally speaking. And typically your governing board is the organization's body that's making those decisions. Some have advisory boards where they're just soliciting input from community members. And usually a working board is going to be when there's not a staff on a nonprofit. So the board is literally fulfilling the responsibilities of what a staff would normally do.
And that, I think about those, and there are hundreds of those of super good people who are basically giving of their time to help whatever their local cause might be, and they're serving on a board. So,
Yep. And it's really important to understand, as a board member, there is, I'll borrow a phrase I heard last week. There's 3 key areas they should be focused on: the board culture and the board effectiveness, the bottom line, and the brand. So, brand can be the program delivery, the fundraising aspect, and board members have a responsibility to the bottom line. It's not just making decisions about how money it's spent, it's helping play a role in generating the resources to make that organization operate. And I think that's where a lot of board members often don't understand or don't realize that that's part of that service is, whether it's people that you're connected to, whether it's you personally giving, whether it's some other role that you play in generating funds for that organization, there's a responsibility there.
Yeah, I'm on a board of an organization, and the key words you just hit a moment ago, branding and all of those things, and trying to build that brand. We're going through that right now, and we've got an event coming up this Friday, so we're working to try to build our membership and and to keep things going. But the other thing, we had a board call on this particular group a few weeks ago, and we go through the financials. And so they go through the financials, and one of the things they talked about that came up was our insurance, our board insurance, and it's very similar. Me working as a realtor, I have to have E&O insurance, and so errors and omissions. So it's and I think that's something that it's a necessary expense a lot of times that no matter what size your nonprofit is, to protect the people who are trying to help you the most,
yes,
you have to take care of that. So kind of talk a little bit about that and what some local nonprofits need to be remembering from that standpoint of an insurance standpoint.
Yeah, so I actually led a session about a month ago, and I asked the group, most of which were people that serve on boards or aspire to serve on boards, and I said, how many of you serve on boards? And so there was a number of hands that went up. How many of you know whether or not your organizations have, director and officer insurance? And a lot of hands went down. They don't know. And I think that's a important question. You need to understand that you're protected. And I have seen or heard recently of an organization in another city where they didn't have that insurance, and something really unfortunate happened with that organization. And now the board members are being held liable to the situation. And it is really unfortunate what's going on. This is in another completely other city. But I think that's a really important question to ask as somebody's thinking about serving on a board is knowing that you're protected with that insurance, and every nonprofit should have that insurance just as a cost of doing business.
Yeah. And I can't even remember what it's a literally a small price to pay, for it's not an expense. That's an investment in your own people. So, again, it was one of those things that I didn't think about because I was asked to be on this board, and I said, sure. And, and I asked, obviously, well, what am I responsible for and things like that. And then, but I do remember when that line item came up in our financials, I said, aha. And so it one thing it told me was, okay, this organization is doing things the right way to protect those who are trying to help it.
Yes. I would say to anybody that's thinking about joining a board or is interested in board service, you need to ask, that's a, probably basic question is there insurance in place to protect, board members and officers? But also, and I appreciate this when I've, been entertaining a candidate to join a board where I've worked, and they've had a lot of questions, and I appreciate that. They want to know about the financial health, and they want to see our bylaws, our governing documents, and they have questions about some of the things that they see in the financial statements. And I really appreciate that because I know they're doing their due diligence because they want to be sure they're committing to an organization that is healthy and sustainable, or at least has a plan for moving forward. So I would say before you say yes, or before you commit and make that commitment to a board position, that you ask as many questions as you possibly can, just like you would in a job interview, because it's a job. It's a volunteer job, but it's a job and it's an important one.
Yeah, you could be an Elks Club that sponsors summer league baseball, whatever, and you have the right intentions, but somebody, let's say a kid gets hurt playing baseball, well, you put your organization and your board members at risk. So I think that's a really important thing that your organization, that C&E,
yes,
can provide the structure or the training to put structure together in any nonprofit organization across the mid-state.
Absolutely. And that is very much a part of the trainings that we provide. We say essentially, here's the playbook, or here's what you need to know about this area. It can be internal controls and risk, like I said, budgeting, HR, all the things that just about any business would have to be concerned about as well.
Okay. Now, before we get to our break here in just a minute, and we'll hit this a couple of times, but for folks who are, there are going to be people who are listening today in their car, hopefully, that say, we have a board, a nonprofit board that needs this kind of help. How can they reach out and find out more information about C&E and how, if they want to get involved and become a member?
Yeah. So our website, cnemt.org, has a ton of information available. Susan Liberator is our Chief Programs Officer. So she works with our members and our nonprofits on the programming and on what I would call member services. And so she can help an organization figure out what their needs may be or where they can plug in and get help within the C&E sphere.
Yeah. And everybody's needs are a little different, right?
Right. Very different. And I, coming into this role too, I was like, I've heard it all. And nonetheless, I still get calls or emails sometimes, and I'm surprised. And I was like, I haven't heard this one before, an organization that's facing something. And we try to always, where we can, step in and help them navigate those situations.
So, all right. And again, Meagan Flippin is our guest today, the president and CEO for the Center for Nonprofit Excellence in Middle Tennessee. Have you, in particular, with this storm that we just had go through, have you all seen an uptick in calls to your office with of different organizations that are kind of getting stretched to the limits from just this one incident that happened over in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, we do know that quite a few of our members, especially if they are in the space of disaster recovery or providing basic needs or shelter, were really active over the last few weeks as Middle Tennessee faced the storm. And so we've helped, where we can and trying to put together resources and send those out so that everybody's got information about what's taking place. But I've been, really, as I always have been, really proud of the Middle Tennessee community and how the nonprofits tend to respond to these types of things because they are resilient, they are resourceful, and it's, we just get it done.
I saw one, our friend of the show, Chris Davis from News Channel 5, did a story about these gentlemen who they go around and they help sharpen chainsaws, and they're just a bunch of guys who do that. But again, it's when the need arises, people answer the call from time to time.
Absolutely.
All right, Meagan Flippin is our guest today. We've got a final segment with her coming up. We'll take a break and be back on the roundtable here on WGNS.
Whether it's a cough, a fever, or something you can't quite name, MMC Now makes care easy. Walk right in, get seen quickly, and your visit connects directly to your MMC doctor. Care you trust, with providers you know, with digital check-in and multiple locations around town. MMC Now is here when you need us.
Murfreesboro Medical Clinic.
Well, yeah, I'll be right there.
It takes all of us to power a community, both in plain sight and behind the scenes. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
What's the location of your emergency? I think my kid OD'd.
Hi, I'm Craig Harris, I'm County Commissioner of Rutherford County. One of the reasons I ran for office is because I wanted to bring awareness to the opioid epidemic that's impacting our county. To stop providing this epidemic with people as we educate. We have a lot to do, and we have to come together as a community because this problem's not going away.
When the weather turns bad, minutes, even seconds matter.
This is an early heads up for southern Rutherford County.
Rutherford Weather brings you live radar and expert meteorologist insight, giving you the early heads up when storms threaten.
A lot of areas are going to see some impacts from this storm.
From analysis to live camera views, we keep you informed before, during, and after the storm.
I think the vast majority of the hail with this now is going to be quarter to perhaps golf ball size.
Rutherford Weather. Stay ahead of the storm.
South Central Bank has 2 CD specials that will help your money grow. South Central Bank has a 5-month CD with an annual percentage yield of 4.15% or a 25-month CD with an annual percentage yield of 3.8%. 2 great ways to put your money to work. You choose the term that works best for you. $500 minimum balance to obtain the APY. Stop by any of our convenient South Central Bank locations today and take advantage of our 2 great rates. South Central Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Local farmers, local meats, vegetables, and other produce at the Winter Spring Rutherford County Farmers Market.
Bundle up and make your way every Friday at Lane Agri Park.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Welcome back into the Roundtable, our final segment today with Meagan Flippin, the president and CEO for the Center for Nonprofit Excellence of Middle Tennessee. She has been a Murfreesboro girl her whole life, and now doing big things on a big stage here in the Mid-State. You know, one of the things there's some numbers that I think are are kind of mind-boggling in that there's $1.4 trillion of economic contribution of nonprofits. And so can you break down how that works, and specifically how the $1.5 billion in government support impacts nonprofits in the Mid-State area?
Yeah, absolutely. So that $1.4 trillion.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. A lot more zeros than I've ever seen. But there's, that much is just given in donations and contributions. So nonprofits are stimulating economy through those contributions. And then there's what I would call almost more of an indirect, but still just as critical way that nonprofits support the economy. When you think about nonprofits being an invisible backbone, which I would often refer to them as. You think about organizations who provide necessary services such as mental and physical health services so that people can continue to maintain a job. I've seen some of that firsthand.
Well, they provide certain things that the government doesn't necessarily provide.
Exactly, that government isn't equipped to provide. Churches and congregations can certainly support, but aren't equipped to necessarily deliver these full-scale services. And I, saw firsthand a few years ago with a person who, even situation with their insurance. They were having to pay, I think it was $1,200 or $1,300 a month for a particular medication. And without that medication, they were not in a position to be able to maintain a job. But it was just this really tricky, chicken or the egg situation. And we were able to work with them through a program that we had available to get that prescription down to, I think it was like $100. So it was something like that. And so then they were able to afford that, be able to maintain their job. So there's all these kind of invisible ways, if you will, that nonprofits contribute to the economy. I've worked with another organization that, provides care for those who have elderly and senior parents that maybe can't be left alone during the day. And that allows those adult children to continue to work. So there's a lot of different ways that, even through their direct service, that nonprofits are contributing to the economic impact.
Yeah. Now, we talked about federal funding that went away so quickly. Now there's probably about $1 billion worth of local government funding that you could probably consider at risk for a lot of nonprofits throughout the mid-state. What does that mean for them right now and in the current climate that we're in?
Yeah, so the Urban Institute put out a report, I believe it was last February, and they were able to show that just in Middle Tennessee, $1.5 billion in government funding was being provided for service delivery, and they had flagged about $1 billion of that as being at risk. We are still trying to gather the data. We're actually in the midst of a project with the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce where we're trying to gauge the impact of funding loss. There's a couple of other data centers that are starting to try to compile this information, but I think it's still kind of playing out because while a lot of the government changes happen in terms of funding in 2025, there's still some of that domino effect playing out kind of, like on the, like a ripple effect. So we're still trying to gauge exactly what that has looked like, but they were able to flag that about $1 billion was considered at risk. We know some nonprofits that lost pretty significant levels of funding, 7 figures or more, but I think everybody's been impacted in some way. A handful have been impacted drastically. And unfortunately, what that relates to is sometimes, a stoppage of services or a decrease in services because you've got to be able to have the money to fund those services.
And there's some organizations that don't receive government funding, but they're still affected by this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of ways I've seen that play out. There's a lot of nonprofits that contract services with each other. So I think about an organization that I'm aware of that provides mental health services, and they were contracted with another nonprofit to provide those mental health services to their clients. This other nonprofit had a focus on something else, but knew that their clients needed these services. Well, this organization lost government funding to the effect that they weren't able to continue that contract with the organization providing mental health services. So now it's affected two nonprofits. And so there's been quite a bit of that. But then there's also been a situation where funders have tried to fill in gaps where the government shortfall has happened. And so it may have meant steering away from other funding of nonprofits. So it's kind of created, a gap over here when they're trying to respond to what's going on with those who are affected from the government situation.
So whether they do receive government funding or whether they don't, they're all having to come up with out-of-the-box solutions to continue to try to deliver services to the different constituencies that they have. So what are you seeing and what are some of the best practices and best ideas that you've seen come out of the box?
So one organization in particular that we're connected to right away when they learned they were receiving government funding and they learned that this was happening, they put together a sustainability committee within their board. And that organization really looked at different contingency plans. If we lose this much funding, then this is what needs to happen. And in some cases, they made a commitment to maybe if they had a reserve fund, pulling some funds out of the reserves for, maybe 90 days or 6 months if they could, just to help bridge the gap while they developed a more sustainable plan to respond to whatever their situation was. So I think it's, sometimes considered maybe a luxury for nonprofits to have a reserve fund. But I think we've seen with COVID and with some natural disasters and now with this funding crisis, it can really mean the difference between being sustainable or not.
And again, as we kind of get to the end of this, the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, you guys have a conference coming up.
Yes.
To kind of talk about that and how folks can, if they're part of a nonprofit board and need to take part.
Yeah. So April 14th will be at the Westin Nashville. This will be the 12th Bridge to Excellence Conference. And we're thrilled to have Sarah Sadian from the National Council of Nonprofits, which supports organizations like ours from a national level. She's the Senior Vice President for Public Policy. She's going to be part of our opening session and sharing some of the legislation that's currently going on that could have an impact on nonprofits. And then we've got Joan Gary, who's an international author, nonprofit champion, former nonprofit leader, that is going to be our luncheon keynote. She's very well known and regarded in the nonprofit world. And then we have a series of breakout sessions, and it can be board members, anybody in a nonprofit role. We've got about just every functional area that we're going to cover, from fundraising to budgeting to program delivery, in addition to some leadership training as well. And then we'll close the day with a panel of corporate philanthropic leaders who will be sharing some perspective on the future of corporate philanthropy, because some of the things that are happening from a legislation standpoint will be affecting corporate philanthropy in the future.
All right. To any of our nonprofit friends who are out there listening or watching today, again, how do they get in touch with your office to take part?
Yeah, so the easiest way is our website, cnemt.org. All of our staff contact information is on there, information about membership, all of our upcoming events, anything you may need to know about CNE will be there.
Good deal. Well, it's so good to see you.
Great to
and
see
glad
you.
You're doing well, and continue the good work.
Thank you.
All right. Meagan Flippin has been our guest today, the president and CEO of the Center for Nonprofit Excellence in Middle Tennessee. And if you missed any of this, you can get all the information on the podcast section of wgnsradio.com. Brian Barrett standing by next. He is chomping at the bit, ready to go. And it's all right here on the Big G, WGNS.
Subscribe to Big G TV, local content that matters to Rutherford County.